Welcome to the Digital Remodeler Podcast. We are so glad you joined us today. And with me is Amanda McCallister. She is a business consultant. And today we are going to talk through the pains of growing and building a remodeling business. And Amanda, your story really is kind of interesting. And so first of all, welcome. And we'll dive into kind of the experience of how you got into this, watching your father, who didn't actually build a business because of the pain. And so
Yes.
you'll tell that story.
Thank you for having me on today, Carl. I'm excited to join you and talk to your audience. That was, my dad was working in the mobile home industry. He was doing service work, repair work on warranted mobile homes here in Central Florida. Pretty big booming business, and he had this great client book of all these homes he had been in over the years doing warranty work. And when the homes were out of warranty, they called my dad. They wanted my dad to come back out. It was a trusted face. He'd been in their homes. He cleaned up. He did good work. And he'd go back out and do the work that was outside of the warranty, couldn't go back to the manufacturer for the work. And I was in high school, and I remember sitting my dad down at the kitchen table because, I was 15. So obviously I knew more than my dad did at that point in time. And I was like, Dad, you have clients. Why do you go to work every day at the factory? Like, just stop and build your own business. But it was really the pain of growing that business and building that business on his own that kept my dad tied to a corporate structure for his entire work life, because he didn't want the bookkeeping, he didn't want the marketing, he didn't want the invoicing, he didn't want, all the appointment setting. He wanted to just take a call when he took a call, because he was very afraid of the legal ramifications, the tax ramifications of growing that business, and he really didn't know where to go. And I grew up thinking that my dad was this really talented person, and he was building furniture at our house. He was doing all this great construction and remodeling work, but his 9 to 5 was just working on mobile homes, because the pain of growing a business was just more than what he felt like he could get into.
That's good. Amanda, one of the things that you and I had talked about in our introductory call was just that, a lot of people in the home remodeling space are great craftsmen. And one of the decision points they do have to make is, can they really make that jump to being a business owner? For some, it's not the right jump. For some, that may not be the right step. And so, part of our conversation today will be about some of those pain things, some of the things that you're going to encounter if you decide to take the road of the entrepreneur. But what ultimately has to be decided is the risk worth the reward, and many people will say it is. But there are some that you're going to find that based on your personality and your risk tolerance and things, it may not be the thing to do. And so I think we're going to have a great conversation. So once again, thanks for being here. So let's to the
I'm sorry, I'm losing you a bit, Carl.
did we return?
Yes, I have you back.
All right, perfect. So one of the pressures that often arises is inconsistent cash flow. And that's one of the concerns that many people have. They often feel like they're going to be constantly chasing payments. And how have you helped your clients manage those types of issues? What are some of the strategies that you recommend for maintaining that steady cash flow?
So first and foremost, I think if you're going to run a business, no matter what the business is, spend some time reading and going through Greg Crabtree's Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits. It's, you want numbers to be black and white. You want to sit in a math class, know that 2 + 2 = 4, and it should all even out. But when you get into business math, it's like, well, you can do this thing over here, or you can do this thing over here, or you can move this lever or this lever. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, as a business owner, you want to make sure, number one, you can pay your taxes, number two, you can pay your employees, and number three, you can pay yourself. And how you prioritize those is a really fantastic discussion that Greg Crabtree has in his book. But I think, when it all comes down to it, especially when it comes to chasing payments, is know who you want your clients to be. Um, I think back to my dad's experience in the mobile home space, he would have had to chase those clients for payments. If you're doing high-end custom remodeling, people that are qualified buyers, I think making sure you have qualified leads coming in is very important. But secondly, you need to really have your systems and processes in place and nailed down for invoicing so that that invoice goes out automatically. You get a 10-day notice, you get a 30-day notice. So those things are automated, and it doesn't feel like as a business owner, you spend your time on the phone constantly calling and reminding people to pay, because that's not a comfortable conversation to have. And when you get to that point of having that conversation, you want to make sure that that's that last ditch effort, because all of the other automated processes are in place beforehand. And whenever you can get people on any kind of recurring payments or payment plans where things are evened out over the course of the life of a job, that's always a good way to go, because your homeowners aren't always going to have the ability to pay right up front. But if they're making a deposit and they're making progress payments along the way, that's going to help out that final invoice. And I'm sure that's not really, news to your clients, but making sure those processes around that are ironed out is very important.
Absolutely. I like where you started with that. First of all, you have to decide who you're going to work with, and choosing the right type of clientele can often avoid much of those issues on the front end. But then having the right systems in place is so key to that. And systems, I think, is going to be a lot of what you end up discussing here as we talk. So many things, having the right system in place can eliminate some pain points. Of course, another significant challenge that gets faced is just labor shortages, finding good help, especially right now. That's a common complaint that's heard, is finding good skilled labor, good reliable labor, and keeping them around. So, what are some of the tips that you're giving your clients as far as finding good labor, retaining that labor? What are some of the things that they can do to remain profitable in those areas?
So here's my really hard response to that people don't like to hear. Labor shortages are a lagging indicator. Your reputation precedes you. There are people who want to work in your industry, and there are good people who want to work in your industry. Good people want to work for good employers. So sometimes when you're struggling with that labor shortage, you have to cast a very bright light on your own practices, your own processes, your own benefits, and take a look at what you're offering for top talent. Um, you can pay for top talent, or you can train top talent. Sometimes you have to take in someone who has your values, who has the mold and the shape of a really great employee, and then you have to take the time to train them to do the things that you want them to do. Maybe that's hiring a guy out of high school who can't do fractional math to do the math on a tape measure, and teaching him how to do that so that you have a loyal employee who's going to stick with you. So, there's lots of things that you can throw around with labor shortages, and where are you hiring from, and what are those hiring practices in place, and how are you looking at resumes, and da 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 da. But I think it really comes down to reputation. Your reputation precedes you, and it's kind of like your customers. The easiest employee to get is the one that you already have. So when you get a really great employee, make sure you're doing what you have to do to keep them.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me ask you this. Do you feel like recruiting should be something that you're constantly doing, that you should always be keeping that pipeline full, or should you respond as you have needs?
I personally like to keep the pipeline full. I like to know who's really great in my industry. And I like to talk to other people in my industry and see, again, just like your reputation precedes you as an employer, your reputation precedes you as an employee. I very rarely hire somebody as a cold hire. Most of the time, I have either gone out and sought that person out myself, or it's somebody I already know that I'm pulling into an opportunity that's come my way. So when I'm looking to place talent with other organizations, I very rarely do a job post. I will go and look at candidates on, online jobs ph or Indeed or LinkedIn. I'm looking at people's qualifications. I'm going to poach good talent. I'm going to take somebody who's not being utilized to the best of their ability, and I'm going to bring them to my team, and I'm going to treat them well, train them up to what I want them to be, and then keep them on my team for as long as I possibly can. That's
Very good.
probably not not the nicest answer in the world, but my bottom line is my bottom line.
That's good. That's good. And of course, right now also, costs are up, materials costs are up, labor costs are up. So how do you keep prices competitive, but then also make sure that you stay profitable?
I hate to refer another book, but take a look at The Toyota Way by, I think it's Jeffrey Liker, The Toyota Way. It's on lean manufacturing processes and really take stock of what's important to your customers. If your customers don't really care whether you're getting things done on Microsoft Excel or on Google Sheets, you need to go with a cheaper option. You need to really evaluate your subscriptions, your cost, all these things that are going out the door. Make sure that you're paying for things that your customers actually care about. And if it's not something your customers care about, cut it off. But the other thing I would say is doing a company-wide time study. Nobody wants to do a time study. I know I'm the operations girl telling everybody to get online and do a time study together. And it's like, lady, we got stuff to do in the field. But you need to make sure that your people are doing the right things. And that includes yourself as the CEO. Are you doing the kinds of things that actually generate revenue for your business? Or has checking email and responding to vendors and the things that don't pull money into your business, has that started to creep into your revenue generating um, activities, and for your team as well? Teams will get nervous about that. They feel like you're looking for a reason to hire them, or excuse me, a reason to fire them. But really, it comes down to making sure that we're doing the things that really move the needle for our business. And you're going to find waste. I don't care what business it is. I did a time study last week and I found waste in my day. You will find waste.
Excellent. One of the things that, as you're talking about waste, obviously, as your company grows, you're going to be managing multiple projects simultaneously. It's easy for things to get dropped, deadlines to get missed, clients to get frustrated, which leads to, bad reviews and just bad sentiment all the way around. What are some of the techniques you find or systems or tools that you like to effectively manage projects and keep those on track?
There's tons of project management softwares out there, especially in the construction field. So you're going to be able to find project management tools. But I think the tool is less important than the philosophy you go to the tool with. Systems are supposed to work for people. People are not supposed to work for systems. So whatever your business model is, whatever your values are, a system needs to be built for your business, not the other way around. So even when you purchase something like Builder's Trend, or you're paying for some kind of subscription service like that, it's only going to be as good as the way you build that system up for yourself. And there are tons of people on Fiverr and Indeed and all kinds of stuff who will help you build those custom systems. But at the end of the day, it's got to work for your business model. And then secondly, you have to use the system too. Lots of people buy lots of fancy shiny objects and they roll them out in a company meeting and they say, this one's different. This is the way we're going to do it. And 2 weeks later, you haven't opened that software platform either, and neither has anybody else on your team. So you're not getting any growth on it. And then you have rising operational costs because now you have a subscription that's permanently on your books that you don't cancel. And it's like nothing got any better, but you have to make the commitment to it as well, not just expect your team to make that commitment.
I think that's a great point you bring up, and it's got me laughing. I was at a conference with our chief operating officer about a month ago, and before we left, he pulled me aside and he says, "I hate to admit this, I don't actually know how to use our project management system. Could you show me how to, do do something on here. And so, here we are, the two top executives of our company, and but you hit a very critical point. It has to be top down. If it's going to work, everybody has to utilize those systems. And we have a rule in our company, and I think it applies to any company. If it doesn't live on that system, it doesn't exist. And I think that's great insight. So let's go to kind of a change pace here a little bit, and let's talk about the business owner themselves and the internal struggles that you're going to deal with as you grow the business and navigating that. And that's something that often doesn't get talked about. We talk about, employee problems and costs and all those things. What we don't talk about are the things that tear up your headspace and your balance and your family time and all of those issues. And so let's get into the first one that's kind of a biggie, and that's just being overwhelmed, being stressed out, because running a business is exhausting. It is stressful as you're trying to get it off the ground, just like, launching a rocket. The most energy is expended in those initial moments of breaking gravity and getting launched. So when you're dealing with those constant growth pressures, what are some of the things that you're encouraging your clients to do to stay focused and avoid burning themselves out?
You have to have really clear, transparent conversations with the support network around you. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I own 6 different businesses. At every juncture, when I opened a business, I sat down with my husband and I had a very hard, honest conversation about what the financial outlay was going to look like starting that business and how my day and my time was going to have to change starting that business. And we also put very clear guardrails on how long we were willing to entertain those pain points. So, if we were going to have to adjust spending or we were going to have to allocate financial resources to a business, how long was it going to be before we expected a return on that investment? And yeah, maybe I was going to be working until 8 or 9 p.m. for 3 to 4 months or 6 months or whatever it was, and we weren't going to be having family dinners at the sit down table. That was fine, but we established where our breaking points were. That was a very important aspect of our marriage through every one of those business ventures, and respecting that has been important. And it is important to have a hard stop on it. It's one thing to say, I'm going to put 14 or 15 hours a day into a new business venture for 3 months. But if that spills over to 6 months, spills over to a year, number one, you're not making good business decisions. You are burnt out. You're making crisis mode decisions all the time. You're not thinking clearly. So you're tanking your business just by your poor business decisions. And secondly, you're tanking your relationships and the support around yourself. Once you sit down and prioritize and say, this is my dream. I want to spend 30% of my day on it, whatever that is, live by it. And that conversation, I think, is the thing that's kept me married for 23 years. It's kept me in multiple businesses, but has kept a thriving home life for us as well. I have 2 foster sons. My husband and I have been married for a good little bit, but we turn it off. And when we turn it off, that means the phone too. So phone never comes to the breakfast table, never comes to the dinner table, and coffee time with the hubs is not negotiable.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And you really, delved into maintaining that balance. There are boundaries that are in place. They're non-negotiable, and you got to have hard stops on those things. So there's adequate attention given to both. You did bring up something that I think is critical, and it's something that doesn't get talked about a lot, and that's decision fatigue. To where you just get to the point that you've made so many decisions, and you've gotten yourself kind of to the place that you almost can't make decisions. You're afraid to make decisions now, almost mentally shutting down. So, how do you get yourself out of that? How do you get to where you make sure that your decisions are right? How do you avoid that overwhelm? I think you addressed part of that, really putting some solid boundaries, creating that personal space. But do you have some other suggestions and, and kind of, there's some of the top entrepreneurs in the world talk about, I only make 3 decisions a day and that's it. You have any thoughts on that?
I'm sure there's probably all kinds of magic numbers. Like I never make a decision before 10 a.m. or I never make a decision after lunch. I'm sure there's magic numbers there. But number one, you're in business to make money. So you have to make data-driven decisions, and those data-driven decisions have to be based on the money coming in and the money going out of your business. You are not running a nonprofit endeavor. This is not a passion project. You have a business, you need to make money. So what are the financial metrics behind the decision? And then, your coach or your mentor, or maybe it's a peer support network. Are you bouncing decisions off of them? Are you going to people who have paved that road ahead of you? Who are you talking to? Is your spouse, and this is one of the reasons why I started talking, about my spouse at the beginning of this. My spouse and I have very different backgrounds. Growing up, we have very different career paths now. But even though we've gone different roads, he still has a very good pulse on my businesses and what we're doing, whether it's running a private chef business or a fine art brand or business operations consulting. He has been read in on all of those decisions. So sometimes I just go into the spouse and say, look, I got 2 roads. Here are the numbers. Here's what the coach says. My gut's not telling me either decision is right. What are you thinking? And having that conversation. But you've got to have a support network to lean on if, once you've crunched the numbers.
Good. You brought up something I think's powerful as well, and that's having a coach. I look at my growth as an entrepreneur. Most of that has come from coaches and mentors. It hasn't been from classroom time. It's been from time spent with those coaches and mentors, with peer groups, mastermind groups, things like that. Speak into that a little bit, if you would.
I think it's very important to talk to people who have been where you are and are going where you want to go. There's no better firsthand knowledge than that, and being able to trust their experience and their expertise. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I'm not trying to figure out a way to build a rocket ship to go to Jupiter. I'm not paving the way. My business model is a common business model. So I need to talk to people who have done it before me and done it well. And it's not that I always agree with them, but I'm soliciting their insight and trying to trust what they've done before me. My dad used to say, don't ever be a jack of all trades and a master of none. Make sure you don't know what you don't know and find somebody who does know it. And that's been a guiding principle. I don't know everything. I don't want to know everything.
That's sound advice. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And
definitely in the wrong room.
That's good stuff. So let's talk about really the next phase. You've started into the entrepreneurial journey. Now it's time to really begin to look at growth and scaling and then sustaining that. And one of the things that an entrepreneur has to decide is what's really the end game. Are you doing this just to provide a nice living for your family, or are you doing this because you want to diversify into other things? And I was intrigued, listening to you being a serial entrepreneur. I'm the same way. We own 7 companies. And so that's like crack to me. If another business opportunity, I start to shake and drool and all those kinds of things. And so, but with that comes, the decisions of, is this the right thing? Does it meet the end game of what I'm trying to accomplish ultimately, and getting clear on those end results that we're after. And so let's talk about scaling. So when we're looking at scaling a remodeling business, there's a couple of things that we're going to have to take into consideration. And one of those is, am I going to compromise quality? How do I maintain the quality as I scale? That's obviously concern. And so one of the things that a owner is going to have to look at is, how do you maintain the quality that has earned you the reputation that is now allowing you to scale? Can you speak into that a little bit from an operational standpoint?
So I think you said something that's very important. You have to know what the end goal and the end result is. Are you scaling because you really want to scale and you want to build a bigger, more thriving business that's bringing in more income? Or maybe you're wanting to scale because you're wanting to go on to a different endeavor, or do you just really love doing the thing? I'm an artist. I really love doing my artwork. I have no intention of building an artist laboratory or an artist factory like Dale Chihuly and his glass. Like, I want to make the thing. I don't want other people to make my thing. It's my thing, and that's okay. But when it comes to other business, like I own an in-home chef business, I don't want to go to people's houses and cook their meals. I want someone else to do that. So I built solid business systems and processes. I tested them. I made sure they worked time and again. I made sure it was a replicatable system. And then I figured out at every step of the way how I pulled myself out of the process. If you are the only person in your business that is maintaining quality assurance for your clients, you probably are going to have problems scaling. You need to find somebody better at quality assurance than you are. And then you need to get out of their way and give them the processes and the systems that are going to allow them to do that work for you. And sometimes that means growing slowly and making sure that you have found the right people to sustain that growth. If you're just taking on job after job after job after job because people want to throw money at you, you're going to get the bad review. You're going to get people who are unhappy with you. Make sure you have the right people on the bus and the bus is going in the right direction before you start taking on more and more and more and more.
You brought up a great point there. I think one of the things that often gets missed is it's okay to slow down at times. Sometimes you do have to slow down to speed up. And one of the things that I think is critical is developing those standard operating procedures, those SOPs, to where you can reproduce that result time and time and time again, because now the system is in place. But I've seen many companies over the years that have grown too fast and then had to back up because their systems started to break. And we even have a rule in our company: go fast and break things. But then when we start to break things, we have to slow down and figure out, okay, what are the places that we now need to uh, beef up our systems? And so great content there. So let's talk about this. You hit on that. If we start to go too fast in our client acquisition because people are throwing money at us, we could do a poor job of serving the people who we already have as our customers. So there is a balance to that, maintaining that strong relationship. How do you encourage the clients that you're working with to maintain those strong relationships and keep their foot on the accelerator but not run away? And I think you understand where I'm going, that we don't leave the people who got us there behind. But we also, you can go the other way, that I get so focused on the people I have that I forget to keep my pipeline full. And then all of a sudden I'm running out of new business.
I think that is a very delicate balance. I do like to say the easiest, and I've already said it with the employee, the easiest client to get is the one you've already got. How do you keep them coming back to you? I live in a 100-year-old home. I like to call the same 3 contractors over and over and over again. It constantly needs work. They do great work. I trust them. I'm not going to bother my dad. He's retired. I'm going to call one of the guys I know. So it's very important that your quality is there so that you do have that returning referral network. But, there is an extreme deficit of livable housing in our country. It's being talked about on both sides of the aisle, and it's a pain point, across the country. So you have to make sure that you're positioning yourself as a quality contractor so that people are picking you up in new leads and cold leads, and your referral network is working for you. And I'm sure that those are all processes that you work through with your clients on a day-to-day basis, but making sure that the quality is going to be there, because one bad review turns into 5 bad reviews, and then all of a sudden you have a lead flow problem, but you also have a returning client problem.
Yeah,
So it's a
absolutely.
delicate dance.
It is very much a delicate dance. One of the things that we're seeing obviously now is people are getting very reliant on technology. AI has come about, and are you seeing that it's easy to become maybe a little lazy with the technology? And what's kind of your thoughts on that? How do you apply the new technology? How do you make sure you're using it well? Uh, but you're not becoming so dependent upon it that you get sloppy in your work.
Well, I'm an AI junkie. I'm sorry. Um, it's an assistant. That's all it's ever going to be. Um, we have a very robust AI suite that we use on a regular basis, from ChatGPT to Claude and Jasper, all the way to Midjourney with some of our graphics and photography and video platforms. And I've built some custom bots for people to build and maintain their systems. So I am an AI junkie, but it is just an assistant. It is never going to solve all of your problems. It is never going to have 100% the right answer. I think that is a conversation that the art world is just completely losing their minds over, because this notion of it's gonna replace artists, it's never going to be an autonomous thing, no matter what date Skynet went
That's right.
autonomous, and when it's not going to be that. It's always got to have good input coming into it. And that's the same thing with a project management tool. If you are putting junk in Builder's Trend, you're going to get junk out. And that's the same thing with QuickBooks. If you're not diligent with your QuickBooks or with your Gusto software, or whatever your subscription network is, if you're putting junk in, you're getting junk out. Take the time to
Absolutely.
do it right.
Take the time to do it right. Absolutely. And, as we kind of talk through this, um, having assistance is great.
Mhm.
But giving the right input is important. But that brings us to kind of the final topic I want to get into as we kind of look to land the plane, and that is a reluctance to delegate. As you start to grow your business, one of the hard things for entrepreneurs to do sometimes is let go.
Mhm.
This savior complex that I'm the only one that can make this happen. I'm the only one that can run this. And they build a trap for themselves. And so, one of the things that I'd like you to talk about is that I call it really the final hurdle to freedom.
Mhm.
Um, Learning how to delegate and how to let go. How do you choose what to let go? How do you choose what to delegate?
Mhm.
And what are the things that you're advising your clients in? How do they make those choices, and who do they choose to let those things go to?
I really liked that you called it the final hurdle to freedom, because that's really what it is. I think here's the really mean thing: if you're the only one that can fix it, the only one that can save it, or the only one that can do it, you don't really want to let it go. You don't want to grow. You want to stay where you're at. And that's fine if you want to stay where you're at, but don't make everybody miserable around you in the process. So that's the mean, nasty thing I say sometimes to people. But when it comes to delegating, again, go back to the right seats on the bus. What is the thing that you're magic at, that you're amazing at, and hold on to that thing? But everything else should really be coming off your plate. But that thing, if it doesn't, if it, if that decision making process stresses you out and makes you feel overwhelmed and makes you feel burdened, you shouldn't be the one making that decision. Find someone else on your team that's better at that, better at it than what you are. And when I started my journey on delegating things out for my business, that's what I started doing. I started thinking to myself, like, okay, well, I'm not a marketing genius. I need to find somebody who's better at that than I am. I hired an expert, and then I shut my mouth and I let him do his job. So hire your experts and then stay out of their way. And then it's not delegating, it's trusting. Um, and then, once you get down to it, it really is the final hurdle to freedom. Do you want a business that's constantly putting money in your pocket as the business owner? Or do you want to be a business operator and you want to be involved in the day-to-day minutia of the thing? Business operations is fine. I love it. I'm great at it. I enjoy it. I want to be part of it. But if that's not what you're looking for in a business, if you want freedom, if you want to be a business owner, then you have to get the heck out of the way.
Perfect.
I don't talk to my chef probably once every week because that's his business and I don't want to be involved.
Excellent. So if you could give, last piece of advice to a remodeler who's listening to this episode, they're feeling overwhelmed right now, just the pressures of growth, what advice would you give them?
Take a look at the personal life you want to have because it starts with the personal life. If you are wanting a personal life where you have time for vacations, time to be at your kid's school, time to be with your spouse, then you need to build a business that allows you to do those things. Um, and maybe that's expensive vacations to Italy, and maybe that's a trip to the local caverns a couple times a year. So really sit down with your family and decide the life that you want your business to give you and then build the business for that life, not the other way around. Your business shouldn't be deciding your life.
Perfect. And you've named a couple of books already. Any other books, tools, resources that you think our listeners ought to take a look at?
Jeff Sutherland's Scrum, The Art of Doing Twice as Much Work in Half the Time, is a really fantastic book. But I live and die by my Crabtree edition. It's on my desk. It's highlighted. There's Post-its on it. I am not a math girl, so when I look at my business numbers, I usually start with Greg and say, "Okay, Greg, show me the way," and I trust what's in there, and it's never failed me.
Perfect. And then Amanda, if somebody wants to connect with you, learn more about you, where can they do that?
So I am on Instagram at Amanda McCallister Consultant, but I do have a website. It's amanda-mccallister.com. I'll send you the links, Carl, so you can put them in your show notes.
Okay, fantastic. And Amanda, thank you for being with us. And to you, the audience, thank you for joining us on this edition of the Digital Remodeler Podcast. And we look forward to having you with us again.
Thank you so much for having me today, Carl.
You're welcome.